that does is kind of keep the space between the trees, because trees are always growing, and so if you run those fires frequently, it keeps from growing all of the trees. Some of them aren't going to make it, some of them will, and that's actually a healthier forest. And then we have on the right, this is a forest that hasn't had fire for a long time, and so all of the trees got to grow up, and so now you've got this really thick canopy. And what can happen, well, just for, if you're looking at these two, what do you think is going to happen if this one catches on fire?
So many specific things.
It's probably all going to catch on fire, right? And this one over here is more like the forest that we have out in front, where you can see the building over there, you can see the guy, well, I don't know if you're tall enough, but there's a guy standing about 500 feet over there that we can see. So, do you want to see what happens if this one catches? Yeah, me too. After putting all these matchsticks in there, I definitely want to see what happens.
Hey there. Have you heard of Southern Fire Exchange before?
That lightning strike missed. But
good things, I hope.
Make sure I win.
Well, we have plenty of fact sheets for you, and if you're not signed up for a newsletter, I encourage you to sign up for it.
And so that could be a lightning strike. That could be someone that threw a cigarette butt out on the side of the road. It could have been a chain dragging on a trailer that just happened to make a spark when it was too dry. And I don't know if you could see, there are actually some houses in the middle of this forest. This is where you call the fire department. Get a response on it, because it's going to melt our plastic display. That got hot.
I'm kidding.
It was up a little higher than I thought. So that is our unmanaged forest that hasn't seen fire in probably decades to get that thick with all those trees. And now we've got our fire maintained forest. And so imagine if there's a lightning strike, we could say, well, first, for the sake of safety, let's make sure this doesn't go in drugs. Let's say there's a lightning strike on this end of the forest. And it caught. But you see, it didn't actually spread because the trees are already spaced out because they've been maintained with fire. And even if there was another lightning strike, that same storm, these trees might get burned, but the rest of the forest is already protected because we've managed it with fire and we've reduced the fuels in between. So something you can see on the ground around here is this pine straw, and that naturally accumulates over time. And so you could imagine if this forest had been burned, but then we didn't burn it for a long time, you'd have more pine needles that would be in between all of these trees. And then if we had another storm or another source of fire for that wildfire, you might actually have that fire spread where it wouldn't have spread otherwise, because you have to keep maintaining that fire. It's called a fire return interval. And so, as you can see, it's going to spread a little more because the fuels were allowed time to accumulate. It's kind of like mowing your grass. You know, if you think at home, the grass is always growing, and you go out and mow it, and it grows again. But if you don't mow it, it's going to get so big and thick that you're going to need a bigger lawnmower to be able to handle it. And so you can see this is still not as bad as when we didn't burn it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But if you don't keep that regular fire return interval, you'll get more fuel, and that means more fire that'll carry more. And there were a couple houses in here too, and you can see the one that has the fuel right up on it is actually catching on fire. This house right here is simulating what they call defensive space, or a buffer, where there's not any vegetation right up on the house, so there's no trees up on the house. So even when that fire passes through, this house is safe. This house is not safe because it had fuel right up on the house. So that's just another way. You think, like, again, mowing your yard actually does reduce the amount of fuel in your yard.
Hey there.